He just wanted to keep his chickens safe 20 years later. They tell stories about him across 300 worlds. They say he killed the Butcher of Andromeda with farm equipment. They're not wrong. Or creates soldiers. That's what people think, that you need training and discipline and years of preparation to make someone dangerous. But that's not entirely true. War doesn't create dangerous people. It just reveals them. Because the most dangerous person in any conflict isn't always the trained warrior. Sometimes it's the civilian who's decided that enough is enough. The farmer who's been pushed too far. The ordinary person who's got nothing left to lose except their land and their family. This is the story of Thomas McKay, a third-generation farmer on Harvest Colony who'd never fired a weapon in anger, who wanted nothing more than to grow his crops in peace and raise his kids in quiet. Until warlord Kreshtar decided Harvest Colony looked easy to conquer. Until alien raiders landed in Tom's fields and threatened his family. That's when Tom McKay stopped being a farmer and became the man who killed the Butcher of Andromeda with a combine harvester. And a whole lot of spite. Tom McKay was fixing his irrigation system when he heard the explosions. He stood up from the pipe junction he'd been working on, wiped his hands on his coveralls, and looked toward the horizon. Black smoke rising from the direction of town. Multiple columns. That wasn't an accident or industrial mishap. That was an attack. His wife Elena came running from the house. Tom, the emergency broadcast just activated. We're under attack. Some kind of raid. They're saying to shelter in place or evacuate to the caves. Tom looked at their farm. 300 acres of wheat and corn. The greenhouse where they grew vegetables. The barn with their livestock. His grandparents had settled this land 60 years ago. His father had worked it until the day he died. Tom had spent his whole life here, and someone was attacking it. Get the kids, he said. Pack emergency supplies. We're heading to the caves. Eleanor ran back to the house. Tom went to the barn, his mind already working through logistics. They need food, water, medical supplies. The caves were 10 kilometers north. Natural formations the colonists had reinforced as emergency shelters. They could survive there for weeks if they had to. He was loading supplies into their truck when he saw the ships. 3 of them descending toward his property. Not human designs. Angular, aggressive-looking craft that screamed military. They landed in his north field, crushing half an acre of wheat. That was 2 weeks from harvest. Tom felt anger rise in his chest. Whoever these people were, they just destroyed months of work. Then the ramps dropped and soldiers emerged. Not human, tall, reptilian-looking aliens in combat armor, carrying weapons that looked designed to kill efficiently. Tom counted 20 soldiers from his position, probably more in the ships. They started spreading out across his property, scanning buildings, looking for something, looking for people to take. Tom had heard stories about raiders in the outer colonies, pirates and warlords who hit isolated settlements, taking slaves, stealing resources, moving on before military could respond. Harvest Colony was remote, far from major trade routes. Easy target. He watched the raiders approach his barn, saw them kick in the door, heard his livestock panic inside, chickens squawking, his 2 cows lowing in distress. Then he heard Elena scream from the house. Time seemed to slow down. Tom's body moved before his mind caught up. He grabbed the closest thing that resembled a weapon, a plasma cutter he used for metal work. Not designed as a weapon, but it could cut through steel. It could cut through armor. He ran toward the house. Elena had been gathering the kids when raiders burst through the front door. She grabbed their daughter Maya, 7 years old, and tried to shield their son Jack, 9. Behind her, the lead raider, bigger than the others with decorative armor that suggested rank, looked at them with what might have been amusement. Humans, he said in heavily accented standard, to young ones, valuable, you come with us. Like hell, Elena said. The raider raised his weapon. You come, or you die. Choose. That's when Tom came through the kitchen door. He didn't announce himself, didn't issue warnings or challenges, just moved straight at the nearest raider and activated the plasma cutter. The tool, designed to cut through metal plating, went through the Raider's armor like it wasn't there. The alien dropped, shocked, not understanding what had happened. Tom was already moving to the next one, not trained, not practiced. Just a man protecting his family with whatever tool was available. The plasma cutter wasn't a weapon, but in Tom's hands, driven by the absolute certainty that these things were threatening his children, it became one. The second Raider died. Before he could raise his weapon, the third managed to fire a plasma bolt that burned past Tom's shoulder. Tom didn't slow, close the distance. The plasma cutter found its mark. The lead Raider, the one with fancy armor, reassessed the situation quickly. He'd expected easy prey, a farmer and his family. Instead, one of his squad was dead, and this human was moving like someone who decided dying was acceptable if it meant protecting his kids. The kind of opponent was dangerous regardless of training. Fall back, the lead Raider ordered. Regroup outside. They retreated. Tom didn't pursue, just stood there, breathing hard, plasma cutter still active in his hand, putting himself between the door and his family. Everyone okay? He asked without turning around. Dad, you killed them, Jack whispered. Yeah. Tom's voice was steady. I did. And I'll kill more if I have to. Elena, get the kids out the back. Head for the caves. I'll buy you Tom. Tom, go, now. I'll be right behind you. Elena knew that when Tom used it, arguing was pointless. She gathered the kids and ran. Tom watched them go, then turned his attention to the farm. 20 Raiders, probably more, all armed, all trained, against one farmer with a plasma cutter. That odds. But Tom had something they didn't. He knew this land. Every field, every building, every piece of equipment. He'd worked this farm his entire adult life. He knew what everything did, how it worked, what it could do if you used it wrong, or right, depending on your goal. Tom McKay had never wanted to be a soldier, but his family was running for safety through his backfields, and these Raiders were between him and making sure they got there. So he was going to remove that obstacle with extreme prejudice and farm equipment. The Raiders regrouped in Tom's north field around their landed ships. The lead Raider, Commander Vexicle, was furious. 3 soldiers dead to 1 human, an unarmed civilian who should have been easy. Pray, find him, Vexicle ordered. Find him and make an example. The humans need to learn that resistance means death. The soldiers spread out, moving in coordinated pairs. Professional, trained. They'd raided dozens of colonies, killed hundreds of civilians. This was supposed to be routine. Tom watched them from the barn loft. He'd climbed up here with a pair of binoculars and his grandfather's old hunting rifle. Not a military weapon, just a .3006 rifle that 3 generations of McKays had used for hunting local wildlife. It wasn't plasma, wasn't fancy, but Tom had been shooting since he was 8 years old. He knew this rifle, knew its quirks, knew exactly what it could do at 300 meters. He lined up the shot, exhaled, squeezed the trigger. The rifle's crack echoed across the farm. Downrange, a Raider dropped a hole through his helmet where modern armor hadn't been designed to stop kinetic projectiles. The other Raiders scattered, looking for cover, trying to figure out where the shot came from. Tom was already moving. He knew the barn's layout, knew the routes through it. He climbed down, crossed through the livestock area, and exited through the side door. He'd be in the machine shed before they figured out where he'd been, and the machine shed had all his interesting equipment. Commander Vexicle was starting to realize this wasn't going to be easy. For soldiers dead now, to 1 human, who was moving through his own property like a ghost, striking and disappearing. Sir, we should call for support, suggested his second-in-command. No, we outnumber him 20 to 1. We are not requesting support to handle 1 civilian. Sir, this human is not fighting like a civilian. Vexicle paused. That was true. The human was using terrain, was choosing engagement ranges, was showing tactical awareness that suggested training. Maybe this wasn't a random farmer. Maybe this colony had hidden military assets. That would explain a lot. Scan the buildings. Find him. Use heavy weapons if necessary. I want him dead. The raiders moved on the machine shed, Tom's last known position. They breached the door with standard tactics. 2 soldiers entering, covering corners. Professional. The machine shed was empty. Just farm equipment. Large machines Tom used for planting and harvesting. Nothing that looked like a weapons cache. Then the tractor started. Not the small utility tractor. The big one. The 70-ton monster Tom used for pulling heavy equipment. It roared to life, its massive engine creating sound that shook the building. The raiders turned, trying to target the driver. There was no driver. Tom had rigged the starter remotely, set the throttle, and locked the transmission in forward gear. The massive tractor lurched forward, accelerating. 30 tons of machinery, heading straight for the raiders. They scattered. Most made it, 2 didn't. The tractor rolled over them, its massive wheels crushing armor that was built to stop plasma, but not compression. Tom watched from outside the shed, then moved again to the next position. The next piece of equipment. He wasn't trying to win, wasn't trying to defeat 20 soldiers in straight combat. He was just trying to kill them one at a time. Use every advantage. Make them afraid. Make them hesitate. Make them think twice about threatening his family. By the time the sun started setting, Commander Dexical had lost 9 soldiers. 9. To one human farmer who turned his property into a death trap. They found traps everywhere. Tripwires rigged to dump farming chemicals. Irrigation pipes repurposed to spray fuel. Automated. Equipment turned into remote-controlled weapons. The human wasn't fighting them. He was hunting them. On his own territory where he knew every advantage. And Dexical was starting to understand that this wasn't going to end well. Fall back to the ships, he ordered. We're leaving. Sir, the others will mock us for fleeing from one human. I don't care. We've lost nearly half our force. This colony isn't worth these casualties. We leave now. They began withdrawing, keeping formation, watching for ambushes. Tom saw them pulling back. He could have let them go. Could have counted it as a win. They were leaving. His family was safe. But they'd landed in his field, destroyed his crops, threatened his children, and they'd do it to another colony if they left. So Tom made a decision. He wasn't going to let them leave. The combine harvester was Tom's newest piece of equipment. He'd bought it 2 years ago. A massive machine designed to harvest grain efficiently. It had cost him 3 years of profits. It had rotating blades that could process a ton of wheat per hour, could cut through plant matter without slowing down, could operate in almost any terrain, and it weighed 90 tons when fully loaded. Tom climbed into the cab, started the engine, and pointed it toward the landed ships. The raiders saw it coming. This massive piece of machinery, moving faster than something that size should be able to move, heading straight for them. They opened fire. Plasma bolts splashing against armored machinery. Designed to operate in harsh conditions, the combine's armor wasn't military grade, but it was built tough, built to last. The plasma did damage, but not enough, not fast enough. The combine hit the first ship doing 30 kilometers per hour. 90 tons of machinery colliding with a spacecraft that wasn't designed to take impacts from the ground. The ship's landing gear collapsed. The hull crumpled. Alarms screamed inside as systems failed. Tom didn't stop. He backed up, the combine's engine roaring, and hit the ship again and again, methodically destroying it, preventing takeoff, ensuring these raiders weren't going anywhere. The second ship tried to launch. Tom swung the combine around, the harvesting blade still active, and drove into his takeoff path. The ship pulled up hard, trying to avoid collision. Not hard enough. The harvesting blades caught the ship's landing gear, tore into it. The ship lurched, lost stability, crashed back down in a mess of torn metal and failing anti-grav. Commander Dexical watched this from near the third ship, watched a human farmer destroy 2 spacecraft with farming equipment. This wasn't possible. This wasn't how raids worked. You hit soft targets, civilians panicked. You took what you wanted and left. This human wasn't panicking. He was destroying everyone on Ship 3. Vesicle ordered, "We leave now or we don't leave at all." The surviving raiders ran for the last functional ship. Tom saw them boarding, saw the ships. Engines powering up. He couldn't ram this one. It was already lifting off. But he had one more trick. Tom grabbed his grandfather's rifle and fired, not at the hull, at the engine assembly. 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, .3006 rounds hitting precisely targeted components. Tom couldn't destroy the engines, but he could damage them, make them unreliable. The ship lifted off, trailing smoke, its engines making sounds they shouldn't make. It cleared the atmosphere and jumped to FTL. 3 days later, it would suffer catastrophic engine failure in deep space. All hands lost. Tom didn't know that yet. He just knew they were gone. He climbed down from the combine, looked at the destruction of his farm, and felt his legs go weak. His hands were shaking, the adrenaline wearing off, reality setting in. He'd killed people, lots of them. Hadn't hesitated, hadn't thought about it, just did what needed doing. And he'd do it again if he had to. Tom started walking toward the caves, toward his family, toward Elena and Maya and Jack who were waiting for him, not knowing if he was coming back. He was tired, covered in dirt and blood and smoke. His farm was destroyed, his equipment damaged, months of work gone. But his family was alive. That was all that mattered. The story of what happened at Harvest Colony spread fast. The colonial administrator filed a report. One farmer had fought off 20 raiders, had destroyed 2 ships and damaged a 3rd, had held his ground long enough for civilian evacuation to complete. Military intelligence took notice. They'd been tracking this particular raider group. Mid-level warlord named Kreshtar who led 12 ships, hitting isolated colonies across the frontier. The 3 ships that hit Harvest Colony were part of his fleet, and they'd been destroyed or crippled by one civilian with farm equipment. The intelligence report landed on the desk of Admiral Catherine Park, head of Colonial Defense. She read it 3 times, not quite believing it. "Give me everything on this farmer, Thomas McKay. I want to know who he is and how he did this." The file came back disappointingly mundane. 3rd-generation colonist, no military service, no combat training, just a farmer who'd learned to shoot as a kid and apparently had a gift for improvisation when his family was threatened. "This is going to make Kreshtar very angry," Catherine told her staff. "He just lost 3 ships to a farmer. That's embarrassing. He'll come back, probably with everything he has." "Should we evacuate Harvest Colony?" "Absolutely not. We're going to reinforce it. If Kreshtar wants a rematch, we'll give him one. But this time we'll be waiting." The military moved in, a full battalion, air support, orbital defenses. They turned Harvest Colony into a fortress, baiting a trap, and they put Tom McKay at the center of it. Tom didn't want to be at the center of anything. He wanted to rebuild his farm, replant his fields, get back to normal life. But normal was gone. The military had taken over. His farm was now a fortified position, and Admiral Park wanted to meet with him. She arrived in a shuttle, surrounded by security, and walked directly to Tom's damaged barn where he was trying to salvage what equipment he could. "Mr. McKay, I'm Admiral Park. I wanted to thank you personally for what you did." Tom looked up from the tractor he was working on. "I was just protecting my family. You destroyed 3 enemy vessels and killed 16 trained soldiers. That's more than most combat units accomplish in an entire engagement. I had home field advantage. They made mistakes." Catherine studied him. This wasn't false modesty. Tom genuinely didn't see what he'd done as exceptional. To him, it was just problem solving. The problem was armed intruders. The solution was whatever tools were available. "Mr. McKay, we believe the warlord who sent those raiders will come back. When he does, we'll be ready. But I like your help. You know this terrain. You've proven you can think tactically under pressure. Will you work with us?" Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Will it help keep my family safe?" "Yes, then I'll help." Kreshtar received the report about Harvest Colony 3 days later. 3 ships lost, 16 soldiers dead, mission failed, cause Local resistance. Local resistance, he roared. 3 ships. Couldn't handle farmers? Sir, the reports from the surviving ship indicate unusual circumstances. 1 human, apparently a civilian, used primitive weapons and machinery to destroy Commander Dexicola's forces. 1 human. You're telling me 1 human defeated a trained raider squad? That's what Commander Dexical reported before his ship suffered engine failure. Kreshtar was known across 3 sectors as the Butcher of Andromeda. He'd raided over 50 colonies, enslaved thousands, built his reputation on ruthlessness and overwhelming force. And some farmer had just embarrassed him. They couldn't stand. We're going to Harvest Colony. Full force. All 12 ships. We're going to glass the planet and make an example. No one humiliates me and survives. His fleet assembled. 12 ships. 300 soldiers. Enough firepower to level a city. They jumped to Harvest Colony expecting an easy target. They found a military fleet waiting for them. The Battle of Harvest Colony lasted 6 hours. Kreshtar's fleet dropped out of FTL Defied 3. Human cruisers in orbit, not colony ships, not transports, warships. Sir, we're reading significant military presence, ground forces as well. This was a trap. Kreshtar saw it immediately. The humans had reinforced Harvest, turned it into bait, and he'd taken it. But he'd come too far to retreat. His reputation was on the line. All ships engage. We break. Their orbital defenses and land are full force. We take the colony today. The space battle was brutal. Kreshtar's ships were fast and maneuverable. The human cruisers were heavily armed. Both sides took damage while they fought. Kreshtar took his personal ship to the surface. He'd kill that farmer himself, show the galaxy. What happened to people who resisted? He landed near the McKay farm with 50 elite soldiers. The best he had, they'd clear the area. Find the human who'd embarrassed him. Make him an example. Tom watched them land from his defensive position. The military had offered to evacuate him. He'd refused. This is my land, he'd said. I'll defend it. Admiral Park had understood, had given him a squad of Marines to work with and modern weapons. But Tom had kept his grandfather's rifle and his plasma cutter and access to his equipment, because while the military might have tactics and training, Tom had something else. He was really angry that these people kept landing in his fields. Kreshtar was 10 feet tall and armored in custom power armor that had cost more than most starships. He carried a weapon that could level buildings. He'd personally killed over 1,000 people in his raiding career. He expected the human farmer to be cowering somewhere, hiding, waiting for soldiers to protect him. Instead, Tom walked out to meet him. Just walked out into the open, carrying the old rifle. You destroyed my farm, Tom said. Twice. Kreshtar laughed. You're the one. The farmer who killed my soldiers. You're barely worth killing. Yeah, well, you're barely worth the ammunition. But I'll make an exception. Tom raised the rifle and fired. The bullet sparked off Kreshtar's armor. Didn't penetrate. The warlord was too well protected. Primitive weapons. Kreshtar sneered. You think that can hurt me? No, Tom said. That's what I think will hurt you. He pointed behind Kreshtar to the combine harvester that Tom had been repairing. That was now moving, its massive blades active, heading straight for them. Remote controlled. Rigged to target anything broadcasting on Kreshtar's command frequency. The warlord turned, saw 90 tons of machinery bearing down on him, and for the first time in his career, felt actual fear. He tried to run, tried to get airborne with his armor's jets. The combine caught him halfway. The harvesting blades, designed to process tons of grain per hour, hit power armor at full speed. The armor was tough, military grade, could stop plasma, but it couldn't stop mechanical trauma from a 90-ton machine designed to cut through anything organic. Kreshtar died the way Tom's wheat had died, processed by machinery that didn't care about armor or reputation or how many worlds you'd conquered. Tom watched the combine complete its work, then shut it down remotely. Told you that would hurt. He said to nobody in particular. The death of Kreshtar broke the raider fleet. Their leader was gone, killed by a farmer with a harvester. Their elite guard had been wiped out by human marines. Their ships were being destroyed in orbit. The survivors fled, scattered across the sector, never reformed. The Battle of Harvest. Colony became famous, not for the space engagement, not for the military tactics, but for the farmer who'd killed a warlord with farm equipment. Tom McKay became a legend whether he wanted to or not. The story spread across human space first, then to other species. The tale of a civilian who defended his home against impossible odds, who turned his own property into a weapon, who'd killed the butcher of Andromeda with a combine harvester. People couldn't decide if it was heroic or darkly funny. Most settled on both. Other species studied the battle, tried to understand how one untrained human had been so effective. The analysis revealed something interesting. Tom hadn't fought like a soldier. He'd fought like someone defending his home. He'd used everything available, hadn't worried about rules or conventions, just used what worked. That kind of desperate, creative warfare was apparently a human specialty. Humans had been farming for 10,000 years, and for 10,000 years, farmers had been defending their land from raiders with whatever they could grab. Tom McKay had just applied 10 millennia of accumulated farmer aggression to a modern raid, and it worked. 5 years after the battle, Tom's farm was rebuilt, better than before. The colonial government had paid for repairs. The military had installed defenses. Tom now had the most fortified farm in human space. He didn't need them. After what happened, no raider was stupid enough to attack Harvest Colony. The planet's reputation was ironclad. But Tom appreciated the gesture. He stood in his north field, the one where Kreshtar had died, looking at the wheat growing there. He'd replanted it the season after the battle. The wheat didn't care about violence or death. It just grew. Elena came out from the house, carrying water. Maya and Jack, older now, were helping in the south field. Life had continued, different than before, but still life. "You okay?" Elena asked. "Yeah, Dad, just thinking. About the battle? About how I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to grow crops, raise my kids, live quietly. We do live quietly, mostly." Tom smiled. Mostly. "Do you regret it? What you did?" Tom thought about that. About the raiders he'd killed. About Kreshtar dying to farming equipment. About becoming a legend for something he'd never wanted to do. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret protecting our family. I'd do it again. I just wish I hadn't had to." "That's what makes you different from them," Elena said. "Kreshtar killed because he enjoyed it. You killed because you had to. That matters." Tom nodded. She was right. Intent mattered. Context mattered. He was still a farmer. That hadn't changed. He'd just proven that farmers could be dangerous when you threaten their land. 20 years after the Battle of Harvest Colony, Tom's story had transformed into legend. They told it across 300 worlds, each version slightly different. Some made him a secret soldier. Some claimed he'd had military training. Some said he'd used advanced weapons. Tom found this amusing. He'd watched his own story get larger than life. Watch people invent details that never happened. But the core truth remained. A farmer had defended his land against raiders, had killed a warlord with farm equipment, had proven that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when pushed far enough. The military used the Battle of Harvest in training now, not as tactical doctrine, but as a study in asymmetric warfare and creative problem solving. Other species used it as a cautionary tale about underestimating humans, about assuming civilians were safe targets. Raiders avoided human colonies that were marked as agricultural. Too much risk that another Tom McKay was out there, waiting to turn farm equipment into weapons. Tom himself had retired from public life. He gave no interviews, wrote no memoirs, just farmed his land and raised his family and lived the quiet life he'd always wanted. When people asked him about the battle, his response was always the same. "I did what anyone would do, protected my family, used what I had available, nothing special. But it was special. Because not everyone could do what Tom did. Not everyone could look at farm equipment and see weapons. Not everyone could stand against 20 armed soldiers with a plasma cutter and determination. That took a particular kind of person. The kind who'd been shaped by generations of farming, of fighting weather and pests and market fluctuations, of dealing with problems that didn't have easy solutions. Farmers were problem solvers. Always had been. Tom had just applied the problem solving to a combat situation and solved it permanently. 30 years after the battle, Tom was dying, not violently, just old age. He lived a full life, seen his kids grow up, watched grandchildren born, farmed his land until the day his body finally said enough. He lay in his bed, surrounded by family, looking out the window at the fields he'd worked for 60 years. Admiral Park, now retired herself, came to visit. They'd become friends over the years. To people who'd been thrown into the same moment of history. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I'm ready," Tom said. "It's been a good life. Long enough. You know they still tell stories about you. You're famous across the galaxy." Tom chuckled. "For killing someone with a harvester. Not exactly heroic." "It was heroic. You saved your family, protected your colony, stopped a warlord who would have hurt thousands more people. I was just a farmer, Catherine. Still am. I never wanted to be anything else. That's what made it heroic. You didn't want glory, didn't want fame. You just wanted to protect what mattered to you, and you did it with whatever you had." Tom was quiet for a moment. Then, you know what the best part was? After it was all over, when the smoke cleared and we rebuilt, that first harvest after the battle, seeing the wheat grow in the same field where Kreshtar died, life continuing, that mattered more than any of the fighting. That's why people remember you. Not because you killed, because you survived, because you showed that ordinary people can stand against the darkness and win. I wasn't trying to be symbolic. The best symbols never are. Tom looked out at his fields one more time. The wheat was ready for harvest. His grandson would handle it, continue the family tradition, work. This land that had been defended with blood and improvisation. "Tell them," Tom said, "when people ask about me, tell them I was just a farmer, nothing special. Just someone who loved his land and his family, who did what needed doing when the moment came. That's all." "I'll tell them," Catherine promised. Tom died 3 days later, peacefully, in his own bed, looking out at the fields he'd worked his entire life. They buried him on his farm, in the North Field, where Kreshtar had died, where Tom had made his stand. The memorial was simple, just a stone with his name and dates. No mention of the battle, no heroic declarations, just Thomas MCK. Farmer. Father, guardian of harvest. But people came from across the galaxy to see it, to stand in the field where a farmer had killed a warlord, to pay respects to the man who'd proven that ordinary people could do extraordinary things. The story continued to spread, each generation telling it to the next, the details changing, the legend growing. But the truth remained, simple and powerful. A farmer had defended his home, had used everything he had won against impossible odds, not because he was superhuman, not because he had special training, but because he'd been pushed too far, because his family was threatened, because someone had landed in his fields and destroyed his crops and decided that made him easy prey. They learned otherwise, the hard way, and the galaxy never forgot the lesson. Don't threaten human farmers. Don't land in their fields. Don't assume that because someone grows crops instead of fighting wars, they can't fight when they need to, because farmers are survivors, problem solvers, people who work with whatever they have to protect what matters. And sometimes, what they have is farm equipment. And sometimes, farm equipment is enough to kill a warlord and become a legend. Tom McKay had never wanted to be special, never wanted to be a hero or a legend or anything except a farmer. But when the moment came, he'd been exactly what the galaxy needed, an ordinary person doing extraordinary things, with a combine harvester and a whole lot of spite.